Welcome, everyone, to KAX's official first webinar. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Heather Awita. I've worked with Kyle and the KX team for almost 3 years now. I do a lot of the sales side of this business. I write a blog for them that y'all may have seen. Love my team. This is a great, great, great company. And I'm joined with KX's very own. He hates this, but like the formal title is CEO, founder, principal, Kyle. Hey, Kyle.
Hi, Heather.
Looking good. You excited to be here?
Very excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Heather.
Thanks for having me. And seriously, everyone that's on, thank you for joining us. We're super jazzed about this. This webinar, actually, we owe a big thank you to our intern, Matthew Dietrich. He interned for us this summer. He is a senior, and this was his idea. We were talking to him about what were some of his favorite trips and why. And he kept circling back and leaning into some of the service and purpose-based trips that he's done. So big thank you to him. So we thought kind of the format here could be, I'm just going to kind of free flow with Kyle. We have some questions that we are often asked about these type of trips, which I will ask Kyle. And then at the end, open it up for questions. I've also had people email me some questions and DM us, so I will also try to include those. All right, but let's get into it. Kyle, so I think let's just go. Let's just get right into it. No
As,
warm up,
as usual, no
as
warm-up,
usual.
no
No
stretch.
fluff. What are some of your favorite destinations, either domestic or international, for families or students looking to combine service with real immersion?
Yeah, I think let's start, in the US. We have an incredible national parks system. And I think that it's incredible terrain and topography that especially a lot of folks coming from the East Coast or Southwest, or sorry, Southeast, like here in Florida or Atlanta. Um, I think getting out west and into the national park system is, if it's your first time, second time, or your 10th time, it never ceases to amaze. And the diversity of the landscapes are quite stunning. Also, there's real incredible cultural immersion within that as well, everything from indigenous, Native Americans, and we could do all, there's all sorts of things that you can dive very deep, right? You can go into the spiritual energy of the land. You can go into the those parts of Navajo Nation perhaps that, could use additional support, for such, projects. And then all the while you're just surrounded by, natural beauty. So I think domestically, that's always a foremost consideration. The same could be also said in Canada, right? And going through the Canadian Rockies and Glacier National Park. And again, there's also still an incredible indigenous population that is also very different from that here in the United States that I think is really important to learn about from a historical and cultural standpoint. So there's a lot of overlap. And again, you could always go very high adventure. You go middle of the road and do a combination, or you could go, something that is very strictly culturally immersive. And then to the south, I mean, there's again so much to be done in Central America, Mexico, and then into South America. So again, the world is so if you're gonna ask me my favorite places in the US, Canada, I kind of name those. And then abroad, we can be on this webinar for 5.5 days talking straight about all the incredible opportunities. But of course, I have to say Africa is it's a big continent, so I'll just stop there. But Africa is always an incredible place to consider going when you're thinking service-based trips and or immersive-based trips.
So I want to actually just hover here for a minute because you said, I think, so many important things. And for those of you who don't know me, in addition to working with Kyle and the team, I also am a mom of two boys. One is 23 and one is 20. So a lot of what Kyle is talking about, we did as a family, and it very much was part of their narrative applying to college and also to internships. So I want to kind of unpack this a little bit. So let's just start with what you said in the US. When students and families do these trips, I think sometimes they come into them thinking it has to be this whole big hoopla, 7 day, every day we're in it. I know because you help plan. I know one of Matthew's trips, and Nikki went on one of KX's trips. It wasn't a whole 7 long. It was 1 or 2 days, part of a bigger trip. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I really think this is where it comes down to just interests and preferences. And I think that uh I think what I love about what me and our team and what we do here at KX is like we do the overthinking. We do the over and like we overanalyze, everything. But what's important is just to hear what from folks like what the vision is and what the interests are and how you want to do it. Do you want to do it with friends? Do you want to do it with family? Do you want a bit of a combo? Like, do you want to start with friends and then you meet up with family and go different ways? And so it really is so personal and again, it doesn't need to be overthought or overcomplicated, but yeah, and this could be something where, again, I think a lot of people, not a lot of people, but I think what's important for folks to understand is that just because you're doing something for 7 days doesn't mean it is going to be as impactful than doing something that's really meaningful for 1 or 2 days.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of this can also be said in, something I wanted to touch on a little later, so let's circle back to it, is legacy planning, right? And I think that, there's one thing to go into like a community and bring supplies and books and this and that or paint the school red or and do and I think that that's important, but the most important is starting somewhere and
Mm,
and experiencing what that means to travel and learn if you can and you're fortunate enough at a young age to see communities in life that's different than yours. I think if you're doing that, you're already starting the process of service-based trips, if you want to kind of phrase it like that, because you always have to remember that your tourism dollars also in many cases, right, when you're traveling to certain parts, right, there's park fees, there's this, there's that, they go back into the communities, right? So I can talk about so many different things and we're going to have 90 open conversations by the end of this by the end of this webinar, but I think what is important is that just feel free. Like, I think you need to just express like what it is that you're thinking and then start a dialogue. And that's the most important part to kind of, to set things in motion.
I love what you said about being aware and making children aware that there can be a pre-trip. I'm going to call it a pre-trip in this process, right? So we're talking about um, high schoolers doing service-based, maybe 1 or 2 days, maybe 7 days with or without their families, and we're going to get into more of that in a minute. But the pre-trip is something that I think that you mentioned is equally as important, and that is when they're maybe not at the age where they can go off necessarily, but make them aware that we are here and doing this, and that this is a way to learn about other cultures, but also a way to give back. And the example that I always think about is when my son Nicky was in middle school, we were in Australia and we went and we spent the day with an Aboriginal family. And we knew behind the scenes, as you said, that a lot of the dollars went back into that community, and that was important to us. But for Nikki, it was just showing up and being part of a community that was out of his comfort zone. So to your point, I think that is often the first step in purpose-driven travel. So I'm glad you brought that up. Let's kind of now lean into high schoolers wanting to do these trips. As a mom, I know you would agree that this is often the first question asked: safety. What does that look like if kids are doing these trips on their own, either as individuals or as groups?
Yeah, I think with all the trips we do, but in particular when it's about teenagers, going off and doing something together for community building, you know, friendship bonding, whatever it is, right? I mean, whatever we're doing, we're always looking at safety first, right? And if anything, we're always saying like, hey, here are the risk factors if they exist. And we always appreciate when someone comes to us with that question right off the bat. That's often the biggest hurdle, I think, and is often the reason why maybe more folks aren't endeavoring on these types of trips because they're operating from a place of fear and what if, right?
Mhm.
Without really kind of knowing that, hey, like there's a way that we approach all these trips and safety is always the foremost consideration. So uh we take that very seriously. And again, for all of our trips and all considerations. And I think that I think just have the conversation. Like it's just like ask the question. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay, like if it's your first child or your oldest child or your only child, and they're going out on their own and maybe you trust them, maybe you don't fully trust them, maybe you trust them, but you don't trust their friend, right? It's like
Right.
just come to us with like what you have going in your head, and then we can help distill it and say, yes, this is the right trip. Or maybe, you know what, maybe this isn't the right trip, but maybe there's something else to consider based on what you're telling us. So again, it's just really having the conversation that I think is going to put a lot of minds at ease and rest. And of course, we always do our best to mitigate as much risk where there is risk, and just make things known. And I think there's a lot of things that, you know, are assumed that may not necessarily be true. So again, I really think it's about just having the conversation, not being embarrassed to have the conversation.
And you often work with organizations where there's boots on the ground. It's not like kids just going off, okay, see you later, right? I mean, I know that firsthand, but maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, and also like legally, right?
Yeah.
And most part, like, you have to be of a certain age to, if you're, in some places, for example, if you're in Korea, you have to be 20 years old to check into a hotel, right? So, and again, whether it's a hotel or if it's a lot, so there's also these regulations and adult supervision that's required. And we're working with companies that, we've been working with for 10 plus years. Again, we're also very specific about who we work with and who they're a good fit for. So we may work with three different boots on the ground in the same area, but maybe they're better for different style or type of client, right? And that goes same for, high school students. We'll say, hey, like he's got like very adventure driven, da da da, and we'll kind of curate that and understand that once we have the conversation. But yeah, boots on the ground is always yeah, especially when it comes to high school students. We're boots on the ground 100%. People we know,
Okay.
people we've worked with, people we trust,
Yeah.
not sending anyone blindly into any situations.
So let's have some fun now. Let's talk about, I'm putting you on the spot, but let's talk about some destinations, specific destinations. And by the way, there's a chat function here. So if people want to put anything in the chat or email me at heather@kaxlifestyle.com, please do. Um, but all right, so Kyle, I come to you, a high schooler. Um, I want him or her to stay in the US. Let's do a US based one. I want it over March or spring break, March or April. They're going with a handful of friends. And we come to you and we say, you know, what do you recommend that this is something we want them to do on their own. Um, we want it to be maybe 2 or 3 days. What does that look like? What would you say? And also, maybe I'm not giving you enough information. Let's role play. Like, what other questions should I be asking you?
Yeah, I think I mean, I would just ask, tell me a little bit about your child, or I mean, I guess at some point, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, is I would always ask for a conversation with the potential participants and
Mhm.
travelers, right? Whether they're high schoolers or, 10 years old, and if they're comfortable, we as a team, like, we think that like their feedback or just their thoughts is usually most crucial to shaping a trip. But I think right off the bat, I would say, okay, well, what do you have in mind? Like, what does this look like? And are those who are going, are they more interested in, corporate, like, are they, like, do they like to work with their hands? Are they
Mm.
manual oriented? Are they more kind of, cerebral, and they want to kind of understand, how they can help from like, what is it that's moving them? Are they land focused? So it's about conservation and preservation of land. Is it about preservation of a culture, of a tribe? Are they interested in, what are they studying in school that has caught their attention? What subjects do they gravitate toward? And again, if we're talking about a handful of, like, 8 as a group, we
Mhm.
also don't expect them all to be the same.
Right.
What we're trying to do is just understand, okay, tell us about each of the children independently, and then what they typically like to do when they're a group traveling together, uh, or when they're in the neighborhood playing, or they're involved in sports. So we're just really trying to learn about the children themselves and what they really enjoy and where they've expressed interest, and then we begin to kind of shape the plan from there. And of course, you always have to talk about seasonality, right? In March and April, right? So that also usually kind of moves the conversation. And then it's always asking the question. It's like, okay, yeah, you come to us and you say, we want it, it's like domestic. But then I will always ask, like, are you open to the option of presenting something that's international? And then, okay, where? And that always becomes another layer of the conversation.
So let's say that I actually want to talk about the international in a moment, but let's say that I say, okay, great. So and you get on with the group of children and they decide they want to do something kind of more action adventure out in the wilderness, moving around, moving their bodies, um, and they're okay getting on a plane. It doesn't need to be East Coast, West Coast. Where would you send them? Like, let's just play pretend.
Yeah, I mean, I love the region between, like, Moab and all the way down into Monument Valley, and Bryce Canyon, and Zion, and that whole area. So it's kind of like a flying into LA or Vegas and then working your way, in either direction, because the landscape changes so much. There's tremendous amount. I mean, you could go rappelling, you can go whitewater rafting, you can see all sorts of, again, like, indigenous artifacts and the ways of life, and you can enlist, real special folks who do like Navajo code talking and and also the astronomy out there is, the skies are, there's very little pollution. You can really kind of get a real great variety, a week trip, and it's kind of cool. It's like we're road tripping too, right? So it's got this real, intrepid and on the road with my friends, just kind of learning about yourselves, learning about each other, telling stories at night, like sitting around a bonfire and different, waking up and then all of a sudden, you arrived where you were dark and then you wake up the next morning and there's like you're in the Red Rock Sedona desert and you're like, I didn't even see this when we arrived last night. How did I transport here? So there's a lot of like alien like, surprises along the way that I think is really exciting and adventure packed. And also again, like I think understanding like the origin of where you're at, right? Like these landscapes did not just appear out of nowhere, right? And they're constantly transforming. And it's just kind of understand it gives you, I think it's important. I think what a lot of, students learn along the way is that, you know, that this world is so much bigger and greater than whatever little bubble that we're currently living in. And I think that's really important, as you're kind of going into your formative years and going college, university, work world, adulthood. So yeah, it really starts a nice conversation to know where you come from.
I'm laughing, Kyle, because now people on this webinar are hearing firsthand what I have the privilege to do all the time with Kyle, which is go on these little trips in my head. And you're the best storyteller. And I'm laughing. I'm like, hey, I want to do that. I want to do that. Like, oh, that sounds great. So thank you. That's amazing. Um, again, if anyone has any questions, pop them in the chat or email me. But actually, we had a question from someone um, earlier this morning that DMs about a way to combine language immersion into purpose-based. Because I know a lot of high schoolers may be thinking about continuing, and some actually require it, to speak another language. And so, we had a parent ask, what would that look like in a trip? I remember, Kyle, we were on a call with someone maybe from Colombia, and anyway, I'll let you talk about it, but
Yeah, I mean, whether, the language is, it's Mandarin, you're looking, to pursue Spanish, whatever the language is, there's, I would say, a 99.9% chance that we would be able to build a program around that, whether it is for your just the student or students, or this was like a combo like student is going to do some language immersion and then family is gonna like jump in either on the front end or back end, whatever that is. But yeah, I actually find that that's like a real exciting opportunity because again, and then that's where it comes down to it's like, okay, well, let's say take Spanish for example, right? It's like, okay, great. Now we're talking about now that's okay, great. Spanish is the foundation. Great, understood. Well, they speak Spanish in Spain and Colombia and Argentina and Chile. The way that they speak in Chile is much different than the way they speak in Argentina, up into Bolivia. And then it's kind of like, again, so then it comes down to like, all right, when you're imagining yourself on a day-to-day basis in this language immersion environment, like what is it like what do the streets smell like, right? Like is there like a scent of like delicious mole like percolating, driving this sense while you're having a conversation on the corner with so and so or is it like I'm in the Andes, I'm in Peru and I'm just like I'm in a small little community, right? I'm in like an Incan community. I'm learning a bit of Spanish, but also like Quechua as well, right? The, indigenous language of the Incas, and I'm just being taken in by this incredible force field of of Peruvian old world, ancient, mystical energy, or am I in Uruguay riding horses, right? Real simple, easy, small population, easy to get around, flat, but just like is so rich in culture and food and so on. So it's like, what does it look, or am I going to Spain? And then it's like, okay, well, what part of Spain? Like, is it like, are you in Catalan? Are you in like Barcelona or Girona, that area? Or are you more, so it's like, what does it look like? What do the like, what do you want the people to look like too? So we really can kind of, and that's what I think is like the most fun too, because it's like, I always tell people like when they're trying to explain, I always ask them like, I need you to just tell me everything that's on your mind. And often what I say is like, I don't even need you to like give me words. You can just like make noises
Mm,
or tell me colors, and then we kind of like shape it from there. And I think again, it's like important to not overthink. This is all an expression and meant to be an expression of like what you're looking like. What is that animal inside you're looking to get out so that you can feel full of love, life, and hope and say, okay, great, I am following my path
mm,
toward, discovering more about myself. And yeah, and language, I mean, you're talking, I love language. I'm the master of, what do they say? It's like I know a little bit of like all languages, and I really don't know how to speak any too well. Working on English, but I think that like language tells you so much about, again, it's a storied culture, so it's another way, right? Language to me is like land, culture. Like language is just another way to tell the story.
I love that. Oh, Kyle, I love that. So we actually had someone submit a question in the Q&A panel here. So I'm going to read it. She says, this sounds amazing. Do you guys help consult create summer programs in particular for high schoolers? I love this idea of adding service aspects to a family trip, but I'm struggling to figure out a summer program for my son. Great question. I've been there, girl. I have been there. This is a great question.
Got it. So the short answer is uh yes. I mean, our like what we do, I think generally speaking, I mean, I mean, this is like travel with intention, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which whether or not someone asks for it, and it- we're always, that's always the underlying ethos of what we do is like really traveling with intention and purpose. But uh yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a program for your, and that would be the thing, is like, okay, well, is for your son, is it, are we looking to, is there a bit of like and when I say a solo element to it, right, assuming maybe it's a high school student, it's not like, okay, all right, Timmy, here we're gonna drop you off in in central Guatemala and good luck, right? No, it's it's saying like, hey, but there sometimes are where it's like some children do need that, right? And are, where it's like, hey, we're putting you in with, and I don't want to say a family, but again, this is with people that we would know that are tailored to what this individual's interests are. And so maybe there is a solo element to it, and then join a more communal aspect of it. And whether or not traveling with friends, but again, it's like, yeah, and then it's like, okay, well, how long is the desired program, right? And then yeah, it's just about learning more about, you know, who this person is and what's right for them.
And also, you brought up an interesting thing before that I hadn't even thought about, which is it's seasonal, right? So our summer is, you could often be a part of a school situation that they're still in session, right? So that's the seasonality here, I think, is important too.
Yeah, always. But yeah, I think it's as as I said, it's just it's a conversation. It's just a, understanding of what the mission is, what the desired outcome, what the desired outcome or what you want the desired outcome to be versus what it may or may not become.
Right,
Yeah,
right. I love that.
yeah.
So, I see we're kind of approaching the end of our time together. We want to honor that this is in the middle of people's days, and we're like just so happy that everyone joined us, and this will be the first of many, we hope. But Kyle, so in our remaining time, and by the way, if anyone has any more questions, please put them in the chat, or any questions after this, please email me, heather@kxlifestyle.com, and I will either answer it myself or find the answer. But so Kyle, so in our remaining few minutes, so people are listening, they're thinking, this sounds great. This sounds great for my family. I want to do a family trip, or I want to start organizing something for my child or group of friends. What are next steps? What should they do timing wise? Yeah, next steps.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think for if we're talking about students specifically in high school, you tend to know what's on the horizon at least, a year before, or because you just generally know what the high school programming is. And so if you're looking to kind of like hit that note, but also make it not just like, oh, oh, my kid's got to do a service-based project. Like, let's like make it exciting because like, why not? Like, there's so much opportunity out there to have it be fun for everyone, and interesting and impactful, right? 360 impactful. It's just like start the conversation a year before and just say, like, try not to make it a last minute thought because yes, it's possible, but I think the whole point of this is impact and not just for the community you may be visiting, but like this is a reflection of self, right? It should and I think that you want to give it the time it deserves to suss out, okay, what are the options? What really resonates with me, my child, his group or her group of friends? and just thoughtfully design it and build it. And then I think again it's like I don't want to give any sort of lame metaphor, but it's like, and this is coming from someone who does not garden, but I from what I hear is if you take care of your garden over time and you water, right? It's just typically we're
Yeah.
just watering it over time to, we're not over watering, we're not forcing it, we're not trying to, fit a square peg into a round hole. We're really trying to thoughtfully design what, and Heather, I'm just gonna segue real quick because I know we're running out of time, but I will tell you that one of the greatest things my mother ever forced me to do was, and I was very scared when I was 13 years, yeah, I was 13 at the time. And she said, you're going to go on this trip to Paris and London. And yes, that's Paris and London, right? But this is in the early 90s, right? And I went, I kicking and screaming because I didn't want to learn French. I didn't want to do whatever. And that was my aha moment. I have had two aha moments in my life. One was in college when I learned that I somehow was a had a knack for art history and I loved it. And like, and for me, art tells me stories about the culture and the history. That's why I kind of always reference that aspect. But that was my aha moment when I was a kid. And that may be very well why I work in this industry, or sometimes I'm always so curious. I'm always traveling to, different parts of the world just to like learn a little bit more about how others live and perceive and view life. And so that's why I think it's really important to just like take a moment of pause. Like if your child has a project or an opportunity to do something like this, it doesn't have to be abroad. It can be in your own backyard. It is just important, right, that they start to see the world and you start to see the world through their lens as well, right? And I think that's where the crossover of the family travel comes in, where when you start to see your child, on safari and how they are excited or scared of what is happening for it's you're participating in those quiet moments of learning together. And so I think it's important to just give it a little bit of thought and not try to force anything or rush anything. It's
Mm, I love that. It actually, it makes me a little emotional. Well, actually, everything makes me emotional now because I'm an empty nester, so I cry at everything. But one of the most meaningful travel experiences that my husband and I did was with my younger son. My older son couldn't go, but my younger son we brought on safari, to your point, when you leaned into Africa right away. And I spent just as much time watching him watch what was going around us. I remember watching a just a herd of elephants for 2 hours, and it felt like 2 minutes. You're just so in it, and time stands still. But as a parent, watching your child watch that was just as mesmerizing. So I love that you said that. It's that's what it's all about, man, right? Like that's it.
yeah. And also again, and I know we're kind of against time here, but again, it can be wildlife, it could be language, it could be landscape, it could be the sky.
Mm,
There's so many things this world has to share with us, and so it's just like, why not? If you
yeah.
have the opportunity to do it and also an excuse to do it,
Mm,
it's like, why not? And again,
why
like
not?
leave the overthinking to us, leave the overthinking to whoever you're working with that you trust, that, trust to kind of, take you. And then the last thing I'll say, and then I promise I'll be quiet, is, you know, when you think of these travels, I also think it's important. And again, I mentioned legacy planning
Mm,
earlier on, like you're leaving your footprint, right? Somewhere. And there are big ways to do it and there are small ways to do it, right? You just have to identify. And I think like when you go to a place, it's imagining like, okay, what is the lasting impact I want to leave here, right? It's like going in and saying, I'm going to teach English for a day to get, like, probably that's not going to be a lasting impact, right? But am I going to go there and just listen? That in and of itself, come back and share with your community, right? And that's why I think like even like what we do and what Heather and I do and what our team does, I view what we do as service-based every day. We are showing people a way to experience the world that is right for them. And even if it's not right for them, guess what? We just learned
mm,
what direction to go next. So I think that this is all very service and purpose and intention based, foundation that we're working with. And the world is our canvas. So it's, let's, I think use it to learn a little bit more about ourselves and our neighbors.
mm. I love that. Thank you. Oh, Kyle, I think that's a perfect place to end. Thank you, as always. And for those of you who joined us, thank you so much. And again, if you have questions or I don't know, just want to chat or meet someone on the team, any of us, email us. You can email me at heather@kxlifestyle.com. I'll make sure I connect you with the right person on our team. But Yeah, on that note, thank you, Kyle, and everyone have a great day.
Yeah, thank you, Heather. Appreciate it.